Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we've got Wednesday, a full slate of games for the first time since Saturday of last week here in the NBA with the IST on a quick break until we get to the semis on Thursday. We are going to be running through best bets in this one with you. Also have a player props video up for you guys, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. I imagine we'll be bringing you a player prop in here as well, but definitely check that other one out each and every weekday. Also want you to head to thelines.com, check out the written content we have up on the site right now, and use that odds finder tool to make sure you're getting the best juice available to you from all of these books giving us bets this season. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first best bet now that we have plenty to choose from for the first time in a little while.
Yeah, I want to back the Thunder. They are at Houston, a Houston team that I believe has won 8 straight in a row at home and lost 8 straight in a row on the road. Those type of crazy splits cannot maintain forever, and I think this is a situation to try to get ahead of it and take a Thunder team that I really trust, because I honestly think SGA is in the top 3 for MVP right now. Chet is the leader for Rookie of the Year. Both are making a tremendous impact on both ends. This Thunder defense is so good. So, I mean, you look at what Houston does so well at home, limits threes, limits paint points, points off turnovers. That's exactly what OKC does on the road. I mean, they're both top defensive teams. OKC's actually allowing fewer paint points during this nice 10-game stretch where they've won 8, where they're number 1 in net by a wide margin, plus 15 in number 1 in defensive rating. And interestingly, Josh Giddey has been phased out a little bit. He's minus 23 over these last 10. So he was getting phased out before the allegations came up that have clearly been a distraction, hurting his play. And I don't know, he's a good player, but I don't know if the Thunder are worse off with him not playing as much. He's been really phased down in their last 2 wins here. And Isaiah Joe just fits in and gives them better spacing and shooting. Let's say SGA initiate the offense more, even lets Chet initiate offense. And they're looking very good, able to withstand a near collapse in Dallas and pull it out with Chet just dominating the last couple minutes. So, I mean, yeah, what I said Houston does really well is pack it in defense, but also guard the three-point line. Where they are vulnerable at home is they give up the 8th most free throws and some good second chance points here. And OKC, not depending on the 3 at all, they have a much higher percentage of mid-range shots, free throws, etc. Because, of course, SGA, that's where he operates. Dillon Brooks, in 2 of his last 3 against Dillon Brooks, he has 19 free throws and 12 free throws. So, when Brooks gets into foul trouble, which he does often if he's playing one of these true stars, that Houston defense can then be regressed to where it was the last 2 times these teams met, where OKC hung about 150 on them and just demolished them. I don't know how, the Chet-Şengün matchup is going to go. This is our first look at that. I think Chet might do a pretty good job of denying Şengün down low where he has been eating. And if this gets into a close game with this close spread here, -2, OKC on the season is the number 2 net team in the clutch, even better on the road, plus 38 on the road. Houston, they barely played in the clutch at home, but overall they're -19 in the clutch on the season and 25th in defensive rating. So I'll take the more experienced team despite the home road splits.
Yeah, you were talking a little bit about Dillon Brooks under in that game, and I mean I have a pretty strong feeling. I have a strong confidence level in the game theory that I scripted for this one. And it involves a lot of Dillon Brooks fouling. It involves SGA at the foul line a lot. It allows, it sort of seems like it's going to be a lot choppier. I think that's very fair to say. You've got OKC on the road. You've got Houston at home, best defensive team in the league at home versus on the road, where they give up like 20 more points on the road than they do when they've played at home. I mean, which makes sense. They're 8-1 at home. They're 1-8 on the road, or 0-8 rather on the road. So they're abysmal on the road and like good at keeping things in the way that they want to run it at home. All of that said, if SGA is going to live at the line and you don't have somebody who can really, I don't want to say just keep Chet off the boards, but definitely keep him from doing what he wants to do in a lot of different spots. I mean, it's crazy how much he looks like KD when he's in the mid range with the skills that he has and the height and the lankiness. So Yeah, I think there's advantages all over the floor for for SGA especially, and the rest of the team in this one. I love a Dylan Brooks under 11.5, where I think you can still get it. By the way, I think that might have been bet down to 10.5 at most places, so you're probably not getting much juice. But I do like Dylan Brooks under. I expect at least 4 personal fouls from Dylan Brooks, which is, by the way, what he's averaging on the season. So I spent a lot of time on this one too. Agree with your pick to take the Thunder on the road. I'm going to go with a team total for my first pick and take Dallas to go over 120.5 points against Utah. And I kind of like the other bet better, but I'll get into it second. I still like this one very much. Like I said, full unit on it. And it's really just, as soon as I saw this, I go, okay, Dallas is healthy at home. Utah is not on the road. That's why it's gotten bet all the way up to now 11 points for Dallas as the favorite. But the points should be there for them, even if it's somewhat of a blowout. A couple of things. Utah defense on the road. We've been picking on them as soon as they get on the road the whole season and dating all the way back to last season. They are allowing 4 more points per game, 120.5 on the road right now, 121 defensive rating, playing at about 100 pace. So pretty much the same stuff as what Dallas, basically what they allow on the road is what Dallas scores at home. 120 points per game for Dallas at home. And they're up to about 7-2 when they play in their building. The offensive rating for them is also much better at home because they're playing a little bit slower, but they're getting so many open shots, man. The threes, obviously a huge part. We always talk about that with Dallas. Much better at home. Utah hemorrhages points from the three-point line. Maybe they'll be better now that Jordan Clarkson isn't going to be in this game. Lauri Markkanen certainly doesn't help them being out. I mean, I know he's not known as a defender, but he's certainly at least length down low that they otherwise don't have without him other than Walker Kessler at this point, and nobody else that you really trust putting on the floor. So I expect plenty of easy buckets around the rim once Luka gets into the lane. He's obviously had his way, not obviously, but it should be obvious. He's had his way against this team without a true stopper. They had Jared Vanderbilt at one point a while ago, and it's been a while. So now we're looking at a lot of open buckets for Luka, Kyrie coming off of him, and Kyrie's done a lot better against teams with weak backcourts. As you'll notice, his points definitely fluctuate a bit this season. He's not the same dude when it comes to getting all the way to the rim. A lot fewer shots around the paint, a lot fewer free throw attempts for Kyrie. But that's why this type of game is opportune for him, because he can just be a little bit more of a spot up shooter. And say what you want about Kyrie, he's always been one of the filthiest dudes when he has any time to shoot from deep. So I think this is I know this is a really bad matchup for Utah. And even like I said, the blowout possibilities be damned. I still think the bench for Dallas can score on this Utah bench. So
Yeah, I believe Kyrie's questionable tonight,
oh,
so
is he
I
now?
would like this a lot more if he's ruled in. If the
Same.
Mavs don't hold him out, because they have been playing slower at home. It still resulted in some high scoring games, but 96.8 pace their last 4 home games, lost 3 of those. If they get Kyrie back in there, maybe they do ramp it up more and try to get things right. And with their 3-point positive regression coming, I think they could still get there without Kyrie. Could still get there in a blowout.
Right.
Because if it rains, it pours. We see this at home, and a Jazz team without their 2 top scorers might just fade away into the night. That being said, I do like Keontae George to pick it up with those 2 guys out, and we'll look at him in the player props. Moving on to a little more player prop focused bets for us here, and we're both liking the Nets at the Hawks. How can you not? After they combined for nearly 300 in an overtime game the last time they got together. I'm not trying to chase these huge outputs as much. I'm going to go more conservative with the same game parlay. Trae Young, 25 points, 8 assists. Mikal Bridges, just 20 points, gets you to even money. You can get more bullish if you want. I would be a little wary of Mikal scoring 25 now that Cam Thomas is back, but he did have 42 on a 36% usage with Cam playing 38 minutes and playing the elite Orlando defense in his last game. He did have 45 in his last trip to Atlanta. As I mentioned, that game was crazy. He dropped 42 in a normal situation against Atlanta last March and now averages 31 and a half with at least 23 points in 5 straight against this team. That includes 2 with Phoenix when he was at a much lower usage. His usage is still pretty solid on the road, 27%, getting 23 a game. And Mikal, because those 2 big games in a row, one against Orlando, I think he's really starting to pick it up as the number 1 option, which he did down the stretch last year. And we saw him kind of open this season quietly, not necessarily sure if he was ready to be that kind of offensive force. And now he is showing that he is. And meanwhile, I mean, DeJounte Murray, 25% or lower usage in 10 of his last 11 with Trae Young out there. Quinn Snyder is clearly trying to build his offense around Trae Young. And of course, you are, not necessarily trying to, figure how to combo those guys. DeJounte is in a complementary role, and especially at home where Trae has 8+ assists in 13 straight games, averaging 12 assists per game. His career against Brooklyn, 32 points, 11 assists on high usage, 37%. This is a different Brooklyn team, but if you look at their most recent matchup, again, 43 points, 10 assists. He took 31 shots in that game. So he is willing to get into the lane, use that floater. And I think that's the most vulnerable part of this Nets defense is kind of their slower guards, including Mr. Dinwiddie, who you like to get his points, but I don't think he can keep Trae in front of him.
No, and I don't think Trae can do much on Dinwiddie, which is why he also doesn't really guard him too much. To be honest, in those matchups, he's actually more, Trae's guarding the dude in the corner. He's guarding Dorian Finney-Smith, right? He's guarding whatever the corner shooter is. He's certainly not on a Cam Thomas or a ball handler like Dinwiddie. And let me just transition into that for the final best bet because it is Dinwiddie. What a fun name, dude. I love Spencer Dinwiddie's name. Over 24.5 points and assists combined. And I love when I can find these moments in time to like pinpoint and pick on certain props because guys are starting to just show a bit different. I guess the output, the way that he's being used, everything has just slightly changed in the last six. And it started with this Hawks game that they played 6 games ago for the Nets. So he's gone over this in 5 of his last 6, the 24.5 points and assists. He's averaging 20 a game, 8.2 assists in 37 minutes per game. All really nice. Some decent competition in there defensively. It's averaged out to, playing about average defenses overall. So it's not like there's been some easy schedule for him over the last 6 games. Just he's played 37 minutes per game in those last 6. Slightly skewed by the couple 40-minute bangers that he had because they went to overtime twice. Still, like he's got the most minutes on the team in those 6 games, and everything else has stayed crazy high for him in those 6 games as well. He's clearly become the playmaker on this team. He's now up to 15 potential assists per game over his last 6, as opposed to the 10 that he was averaging in the prior 13 games. And really a part of that is Cam Thomas just had the ball in his hands and was told to go. Then Cam Thomas missed time. They started to do a lot better. Their offensive rating skyrocketed when Cam Thomas went out for a couple games because they had a true point guard, because McHale wasn't forced to do everything himself and could be a true shooting guard / small forward, whatever you want to call him. And everybody else could go into their original spots where they should be, not trying to force it playing one-on-one ball because Spencer Dinwiddie is actually playing point guard with those potential assists, with the usage rate going up from 18 to 22%. And that tells me he's had the ball in his hands way more, but he's still a point guard first because the usage rate did go up. But it's not like he's shooting that much more than he was compared to when he wasn't the focal point of the leader, if you will, of this offense. He did have, by the way, 26 and 12 against the Hawks to kick off this streak of going over 5 of his last 6 as well. He's also just now, I think Jacques Vaughn has to know, like he's the best. He's the dude that makes the offense go. His on-off numbers are crazy, like better than anybody else on his team. In the last 6, 128 offensive rating when he's on the floor. On the season, he still has the best on-off numbers, 121 offensive rating when Dinwiddie's on the floor. I'm saying this a little bit out of surprise and amazement because I've always been a little bit of a detractor from Dinwiddie, who I think hunts his shot a little bit too often at times, rather than being the guy who sets everything up. And now I've seen a big change from that for him. So everything like in this matchup is just ripe for, once again, for him to do well. I don't know why he wouldn't get the same minutes and usage that he's had last time when the Hawks give up the second most assists per game. They are decent at limiting points per game to the opposing point guard. But I also have looked at their last 7, and they played a few more scoring point guards, and that jumped way back up into the bottom 15 in terms of allowing points per game to point guards. So it's just a little bit of a matchup for them. And the 17 potential assists as well that Dinwiddie saw in his first matchup with them, pretty consistent. He saw a ton of those last year against them when he wasn't even clearly as high in terms of importance to this offense.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not afraid of the points because I think Trae Young will have to guard him for a lot of this game. I mean, you can't put Trae on Cam Johnson and expect Cam not to pump and drive and use like his 6'10" frame and just get in there. Like you can't hide him really on anyone on these Nets team, and you need DeJounte on Bridges or on Cam Thomas. Trey's got to guard someone, and obviously Spencer can get his points here. I think the total is only at 240 for this game. And if what you're saying about the Nets offense starting to hum, getting 129 against Orlando, I think an over feels pretty good. We're maybe a little scared off of it because the Indiana Pacers actually played defense in their last game. And we're like, whoa, maybe these games, these teams don't always go 240 plus. But that was an IST game, of course. This is Atlanta at home. Yeah. It would be surprising if both teams are not in the 120s.
Yeah. Good on Indiana for going, okay, we can't give up 1.65 points per possession or whatever they were doing prior to that game against Boston. Now, they actually had a really solid points per possession against Boston that I'm stealing that entirely from Zach Lowe, but I thought it was an awesome, perfect stat. He's way smarter, so I'm going to use it. That is all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along. Check out the play of props that we have up for you, staying wicked hot on those. Still up about 15 units on the season. So until we see you next, happy betting.